It appears I have found an ancient relic documenting about Marco Land. I should bring this back to headquarters. Maybe the Black Hole troops can figure out what this hieroglyphics really is.
Strange game. The only winning move is not to play.
I'm going to try to make this as not so problematic as much as I can. I'm not going to try to edit this too much because I really got to get this out there. It has been on my mind ever since the Advance Wars Reboot Camp delay fiasco happened. I swear from the bottom of my heart, I genuinely enjoy Advance Wars. It is one of my favorite Nintendo first parties next to Wario Land. And no, I'm not counting WarioWare. That shit fucking sucks. Nintendo, please make another Wario Land. If you can revive Super Mario, you can revive Wario. But I'll probably rant about that some other time because I have a couple bones to pick with Wario and why Nintendo essentially degraded him to a fucking Family Guy character. I made a video quite a while back. I believe it's still on my channel. One of them is immensely popular. I made two of them because I wanted to be all interesting, but I think the one that ended up getting the most traction was the one I was actually more excited to put up, and that is the meteor strike in 2022. During one of Nintendo's Directs, they actually showed off some footage. It wasn't much, but it genuinely made me excited. It was Advance Wars, but made in a more modern style. Now, I still was a little worried that despite it being made by Way Forward, they were gonna throw in Shantae as a bonus because, you know, people like the funny, lewd genie grill, I guess. It's, I know Way Forward is usually liked, at least when they're not pumping shit out like Double Dragon Neon, that wrestling game on the Game Boy Color, that one game on the Switch, and people were just kind of going like,
what in fuck's name are you doing?
I had some doubts about Advance Wars Reboot Camp, and I really wanted it to at the very least include a campaign editor like what Wargroove does. And for those who wonder, yes, I do like Wargroove. I do think it is an interesting game, and I really much like that it is playable on just about everything, but I still don't think it's as good as Advance Wars. But for what it is, it can stand on its own. I just kind of wish that the gameplay was more, you know, not as bullshit. One of the Groove commanders, he essentially has a chance to pretty much not end his turn when he attacks, and he can sometimes, well, be a cheapo about it. I can't stand the fucker. I can't think of his name, but I'll put him on the screen. Despite my initial concern for Advance Wars, because, you know, whenever something new from old gets revived, there's usually a chance that it was going to be fucked up, but whatever it was going to be, I was excited. Hell, I even pre-ordered the game at GameStop. Yes, I still use that shit, and fuck you, because I generally like Advance Wars. I played both games in the GBA. I sadly never got to play the games in the DS when it was new, because I didn't have a DS. I was a poor lad, and I couldn't afford such wonderful toys. It's pretty sad. And I did eventually play the games, but for emulation. And because I did not have a gaming laptop or anything of the sort, I forget the name of the emulator. I still use it to this day, although it's a lot more updated now. It ran like shit, and I don't have the original save file anymore, so I can't really show you my first ever playthrough, but I did beat the game. Probably albeit with save states, but I'm not going to get into that fiasco. And, of course, there was also the other Advance Wars game, Days of Ruin, which was essentially a reboot, if you want to call it that, but it still retained the excellent gameplay and introduced a lot of features that a lot of people will probably agree that it is a very competitive, or the most competitive Advance Wars has gotten, and it's actually fairly balanced, or at least tries to anyway. I'm not going to go into the whole ordeal because I haven't really played it as much. I am a little bummed that it doesn't continue the story from the other Advance Wars games, but considering that the third one essentially just ends it on a good note, I really don't want to have to see Advance Wars go something down like Metal Gear, or even something like Street Fighter, where it goes on for so long that even the developers are considering a time reset, which is pretty disgusting if you ask me. But anyway, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this rant, because this is when we'll probably start getting the most pissed off, because I have the time and I want to get this out there while my thoughts are circulating. So, there was an announcement, I think it was around March, I believe, and Nintendo essentially said, because of the war that's going on, and you know which one it is, we're going to be delaying this game indefinitely, despite the game being delayed twice. And I got really pissed off, because... Okay, I'm gonna try to calm down first of all, because this really annoys me. And before I get into it, I want to make it very clear. Yes, I know the other Advance Wars games have really shitty release timings. And yes, I know the original Advance Wars game got delayed in Japan. I do not give a shit. That was then, and this is now. It also does not mention that there are much worse games out there, and they never once got delayed. They came out as intended, and you damn well know which games I'm going to be talking about, and I'm going to get into those. I don't give a shit about the delay that happened initially, because it did eventually come out. Maybe 3 years eventually, but even with the game being delayed due to very unfortunate events, which I'm not trying to downplay, by the way, but the main issue is that of all the reasons to delay Advance Wars, it doesn't make any sense to me. It really doesn't. Let's talk about games like Call of Duty, okay? I've played Call of Duty. I play the campaigns because I'm not a lazy fuck who only plays the multiplayer and zombies or whatever side mode that's not as good. Call of Duty, if we're gonna go by modern war being really offensive, then almost every other game in the series should be given the same attention that people on Twitter, sorry, I almost said TikTok and I almost threw up, sorry. People on Twitter should be just as pissed off at Call of Duty always releasing their games every year, regardless of what events go on in the world. I know someone's gonna be like, the Advance Wars got delayed when 9/11 happened. I don't give a shit what got delayed back then. Despite the very, very sad and quite frankly tragic event that happened that day, no one should ever forget what happened on that day. Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. It seems that Advance Wars is one of the few IPs that people want to say that because of tragedies that are going on around the world, that it should be delayed when there is a lot worse out there. You want to know what also came out in 2001? Fucking Halo. Now, yes, I know it came out after, but let's be honest. I know the series usually doesn't get talked about much in terms of mature content, because people just look at the gameplay and it's like, oh, why is it rated M for mature? People don't know what the story of Halo actually is. Playing as good old boy, Master Chief, going on fighting aliens who essentially want to commit human genocide and shit in the favor of religion by a bunch of prophets who are even more insane. Now, yeah, I know there was something that was introduced in Halo 2, but still. And I know you're going to be like, oh, why do you give a shit about this story? Because if we're going to go on about Advance Wars being offensive, then I might as well bring up other games that I do play that might as well be worse. Okay? Because this shit is fucking stupid. It really is. People like Timotheus, who I'm quite sick and tired of seeing him tweeting about shit, Advance Wars, and you have other accounts making the joke about, dead, dormant Nintendo IPs, and yet you barely see Advance Wars getting mentioned. And the one time Nintendo actually does have someone who people usually like WayForward games because of funny Genie Grill, they're suddenly fine with the game being delayed because there's a war going on. We have to be sensitive to those who might not want to play a game that deals with war, except Triangle Strategy came out around the same time, but people argue that it's not the same thing because it doesn't use modern military tactics, despite the game dealing with war. I know Twitter is kind of a shithole, as to quote by a former president, but are you people actually retarded? Do you not play Fire Emblem and Xenoblade Chronicles? Those also deal with war in some factor. Is it because it uses military vehicles? Is it because you get to control expendable units? Piloting fighters, bombers, tanks? Okay. You wanna know what lets you do all that shit? Fucking Battlefield? Do Nintendo accounts go on about how Battlefield 2042 should be delayed because of other wars going on that isn't the big one that happens to get a lot of coverage? No, because they don't play Battlefield. They only play Smash Brothers, fucking jack off to Fire Emblem and Xenoblade, and even those who are like Persona fans don't even play them, but just talk about them like they have played them, which is disgusting. Now, the last part about the jacking off part is a bit of an exaggeration, but everything else isn't. And yeah, I know Battlefield 2042 came out before the whole thing, but it also doesn't change the fact that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2022 is being released with 0 delays. Because even Infinity Ward and Activision don't give a shit about some fucking war that's going on. And I'm sorry to say some war, but I'm gonna throw in another truth bomb out there. There are also other wars going on. It's just that this one has happened to getting the most coverage. Believe it or not, there's always wars going on, whether it be in reality or fiction. Hell, most people probably don't even know that Dragon Ball is one big race war. I'm so sick of tired of people even using the main excuse as to why Advance Wars is delayed. And it just proves to me that these people who probably go on their soapboxes about this shit probably never even played the games, okay? Here we go. Once upon a time, there is a land called Marco Land, and there's 4 different nations. Orange Star, which was originally called Red Star, but even Nintendo at the time was like, oh shit, we don't want to relate this to communism, so let's change it to Orange Star. You also have Blue Moon, who was also originally called White Moon, which I'm guessing is because of color limitations and all that shit. You also got Green Earth and Yellow Comet. Now, Orange Star is essentially not US, or as I'm going to call it, Borat, US and A. You got Blue Moon, which is essentially not Russia. You got Green Earth, and you got Yellow Comet, who is essentially not Japan. There is also a 5th nation, which is known as Black Hole, which is run by Sturm, one of my all-time favorite commanding officers, and has a badass name to go with it, and surprisingly, there's actually a lot of good shit you can mix it with, to be honest. Sturm creates a imposter known as Clone Andy, and apparently one of the game's features of Reboot Camp is you can play as Clone Andy, even though I don't know why even pages back then even bothered giving him a fucking fan page. A character page when it is essentially the exact same character. Not even a different character in the ID, just a literal slot that happens to be Andy, but having slightly different text. Now, here's the shitstorm that happens with Clone Andy, okay? This Clone Andy goes on a tirade attacking the other nations because a robotic sniffet wants to have the 4 nations attacking each other so that likely Sturm can take over when their forces are weakened. You wanna know what this sounds like? Orange Star is sus, and there's an imposter among us. And yet you fucking retards want to make memes out of the Black Hole soldiers looking like Among Us. Anyway, let's continue. So, the main excuse that people want to throw in there is that Russia is attacking America. Even though what I just mentioned may not have been initially shown in the game at first, but people probably watched a Let's Player, probably Jacksepticeye, Markiplier, PewDiePie, or whoever the fuck. I don't care. I really don't give a shit. And they just assume, oh, it's Russia attacking America. Let's cancel this game. Okay. Even though Modern Warfare 3 starts with, well, technically a continuation of Modern Warfare 2, but what the fuck ever. Even though in Modern Warfare, the main enemy is Russia, and there's very clear instances of Russia attacking fucking America, and in one such level, Modern Warfare 2, literally fighting Russia in the heart of America, the White House. But guess what? You can still buy Modern Warfare 2 Campaign Remastered, and even the games on Xbox One and Steam. Now, yeah, I know they're older games, but if we're really going to go off of Advanced Wars bad because Russia, then every fucking game ever made now that has anything remote to Russia, you might as well go on a fucking pointless bitching spree about. Because if you people seriously can't even be bothered to read the context as to why Russia attacks America in a game that has nothing to do with politics, by the way. Here's another thing I don't understand. Why are people trying to push in politics in a game that's not even political at all? Now, yes, obviously the game takes place in fictional location where there happens to be 4 nations and such stuff. Okay? And it's all cartoon drawings, or, sorry, anime drawings. Okay? The games are barely political at that. Maybe at worst, you have fucking Von Bolt in Dual Strike who just wants to see the world perish so he can continue living or some shit. The games are not even close to being political. Okay, the units in those games are literally expendable. Yeah, there's a couple soldiers who talk, but it's mainly just dialogue and to just keep the missions going forward. The games don't really have a deep story. I'm gonna be honest, they don't. They are not political in the slightest. It has a war theme, but that doesn't mean it has to be fucking political. Now, it's not a barrel of laughs either, because there are characters who end up dying, and even other characters who are close of dying. There is tension if you actually read the fucking dialogue. Read the fine print, you fucking moron. You can't just assume game bad because it just happens to start off in a way that happened in 2001, and then directly connecting it to modern day events. That shit is retarded. You cannot look at a game like Advanced Wars and say, oh, this game starts off the plot by having Russia invading America, so we have to delay this game, even though by that logic, Modern Warfare 3's plot starts off Russia attacking an American area. So did you get on your high horses whenever a Call of Duty game comes out and it happens to be released around the time where there's some war going on? Remember Iraq? Remember that shit? No? Then read up about it. Now, I know all this sounds completely pointless, and let's be honest, it is, but it hasn't stopped other games from being released. Maybe at worst being censored, or some shit. They still came out. Battlefield never got delayed because of a war. Call of Duty never got delayed because of a war. Any other game that has to deal with war never got delayed because of a war. And yet Advanced Wars is the one game that people want to pull. Oh, it's okay. We can wait for this one. We can wait for Advanced Wars, guys, even though I directly support Fire Emblem, even though those games deal with war. What the fuck is wrong with you? Seriously. Is it because those games don't use military tactics? Doesn't Fire Emblem literally have, at least Fire Emblem 7, introduce a tactics guy? You know, to make the players assume because Americans are retarded and that they needed an explanation as to why the units are being controlled or whatever. It still deals with war, just not in the same way as using tanks and bombers. And that's their main argument, is that Triangle Strategy does not use the same war, so it's fine. It's still war. Okay? And even look at games like Command & Conquer. Those games clearly have war settings, but you know, that's another game that doesn't get talked about in terms of cancellation, because those games very much use war tactics. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if EA all of a sudden releases another Command & Conquer, or somehow ports Command & Conquer Remastered on the consoles, and if they have, I don't give a shit, that these people won't say anything because those games clearly use the tactics of war. And it's real-time strategy. And it wouldn't be surprised if there's mods out there, because Command & Conquer is primarily a PC game series that deals with unfortunate situations. And correct me if I'm wrong, there is very much scenarios that just so happen to have missions based on real events. Even other Twitter accounts like About Nintendo, which I'm just quite frankly tired of looking at now because he's kind of gone from someone that I understand what people call him a bootlicker. I won't say he's a bootlicker, but considering I do feel that he is a much more critical person shitting on Nintendo games, I do find it kind of disappointing that he is also the kind of person who looks at Advance Wars and say, oh, that's offensive. And yet, there are other games, even besides Advance Wars, that people would say, oh, it's insensitive to release Advance Wars at this time. Even though other war games come out, no problem, outside of Nintendo. You people are seriously gonna start playing shit besides fucking Smash Brothers and Fire Emblem. Or even Mario for that matter of fact. Not to say those games are terrible, but you know what they say about broadening horizons, right? How about you fucking do that and realize there's more games out there besides Nintendo? Advance Wars is not the only fucking game that deals with war themes, if you even want to call it that. And there are certainly other games, especially they're coming out, Call of Duty, that are clearly going to have Russia as the enemy, or that they're probably going to pull a second No Russia. Or No Russian, sorry. Not that I really give a shit. Quite frankly, the people who criticize about No Russia are just as retarded, because, first of all, Call of Duty is pretty much been an unrated series since its inception, and with at least the older ones, they did not hold anything back. When you literally start playing the game for the first time, it tells you there will be graphic content ahead. So you want to turn it off, and if you say no, and you complain about it anyway, you're fucking retarded. Do I give a shit that No Russian is, offensive? No, because, one, you can skip it. Two, it's still an important set piece. That's like watching something like Schindler's List but skipping the most controversial bit in the movie, despite probably being the most important part of the movie. But whatever. I'm not going to get into that bullshit. It's a good movie, though. Why Advance Wars? Why attack Advance Wars because of this shit? You could probably go on the same tirade about Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and I agree that it'd be fucking stupid, but at least it makes sense, because Call of Duty is one of the most popular war games out there, and no doubt that this game, Modern Warfare 2 2022, being the continuation of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, where Russia is the bad guy, I guarantee you Infinity War will probably pull something like that one mission that was greatly hyped about, except it's one linear sequence, and they'll probably do it again. I guarantee you they'll do it again, and yet no one will care because Call of Duty is played by kids now, and Infinity Ward or whoever markets their games to children despite the games being M-rated, but then only the stupidest of parents will complain about the campaign that nobody plays anyway, so whatever. Call of Duty at this point should be more offensive, because even in the multiplayer levels too, there are factions where there's, the US Rangers and Russia? Why don't you complain about that? If you're really going to pull that these war games are insensitive and should be delayed, go complain to Infinity Ward for being insensitive piece of shit. I am genuinely tired of people complaining about this shit. Play something outside Smash Brothers, please.
I have no patience for cowards.
Interesting. This person is clearly insane. But does he not have a purpose? Lash, get to Armored Personal Carrier. We're going on another trip. Have your bases ready to go. We're going on another expedition. Move at once. We must find more of that. This escape room player.